Good morning, happy Friday, and welcome to my channel. Um, I thought now was a good time for me to finally make a video about my record collection and all that it contains as of Friday, April the 24th, 2026. Recently, the YouTube algorithm started recommending me more record related channels than it had been in the past. And it's funny, some of those channels are people around my age that are sort of in the same range as me age wise. I'm 3 weeks away from being 42. And some of them are decidedly Generation Z with decidedly different music taste than I have, which is totally fine. I think you can tell a lot about a person based on their music collection and what is in it, but I don't have I don't hold anything against anybody for what they want to listen to, because you listen to whatever you want to listen to and I will listen to whatever I want to listen to. And if we have some overlap, great. If we don't have overlap, oh well. So, first of all, I wanted to go over a bit of the stats on my collection. Um, it consists of 261 pieces of 12-inch vinyl, started in 1987 when I was 3 years old and I heard my first record. I won't say albums in this case because there are at least four 12-inch singles among that number. And it also contains 344 7-inch records. I won't say vinyl here because I think about 35 of those are styrene pressings, unfortunately. So it begins more sort of properly in 2004 was the first time I spent my own money on something, when I bought a 45 of Crazy Little Thing Called Love in a Value Village. This video is just going to be the 12-inch portion because for me to go over all 344 7-inch records in here as well, we would be way too long. It all lives in a 4x4 Expedit behind my chair here. It's about 3.5 of the 4 Expedit cubes, and it is all alphabetized by last name and then chronologically within artists. The only case where that is different is the case of Trooper, which lives in Records on Walls frames, just out of frame on the wall, similar to that one that I have up on the wall there, which is my now playing stand. And the reason Trooper lives on the wall is because when I saw them in concert, I was lucky enough that Ray McGuire and Brian Smith signed their entire discography that I had with me. And so that's why it lives on the wall. I do have some more autographed records that aren't on the wall, but that's just because I don't have enough space on the wall to fit all the frames. So what I thought I would do is I will put in the upper corner here, in the left corner of the video, I'll put a letter based on what part of the alphabet we're going through right now. That way, if you want to jump around, I will have timestamps. But I should also mention that just over 50% of my collection would fall under the umbrella of Cancon, or Canadian content. Here in Canada, we have the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission, the CRTC, and they have certain percentage numbers that are required to be Canadian content as far as television and radio go. For radio, the current number is you have to have 35% of the content on your radio station with certain exceptions for specialty formats such as classical music. 35% has to be Canadian content. So we get exposed to a lot of the artists and content from our own country, which might not get exposed to people of other parts of the world. And so who knows, maybe I'll have something I can introduce you to here today. So we're going to start with the A's. Of course, I wouldn't have a collection if I didn't have ABBA. This is Waterloo, their second album. Their first album, Ring Ring, didn't come out in North America. The funny thing is, this one tells you that ABBA is Bjorn, Benny, Anna, and Frida. So I'm not sure why Annifrid or Frida used Annifrid used her real name Frida, but I'm not sure why Agnetha decided to call herself Anna on this. But this is the last of the ABBA studio albums that I acquired. It took me a while to find this one. I got it. I can't remember exactly where, but not bad. I'm a bargain bin hunter, so there's a lot of cheap bargain bin records in here. But I always say my collection is like Hotel California. You can check out anytime you want, but you can never leave. So if it plays, it stays. This is their third album, ABBA. This has some pretty great tracks on it. I like this album. They're an interesting case because they have a lot of interesting tracks that were not on their studio albums. This is their greatest hits album, the North American version, which has a different track list from the one that came out in Europe and other parts of the world. This has Fernando on it, whereas those other countries got Hasta Mañana instead of Fernando. That greatest hits album is part of what I will refer to as the Peggy portion of my collection. In 2006, my aunt asked me to help her catalog her collection for potential sale. And she said, as payment for helping her out, I could take some records if I wanted to. And so I got a few things from her collection. And here is Arrival, commonly known as, or commonly thought of as their magnum opus. It has Dancing Queen on it. It has a lot of good stuff on it. I'm not a big fan of Dancing Queen myself, but I know there are people out there who do like it. So, hey. This is the album. This one came from an antique store I used to visit that had all their albums for $1. And that's where I got a bunch of things, circa 2006, I believe. Here is Voulez-Vous as well. Another great album. It's got a lot of nice poppy sort of hit stuff on it. Some. Here's Greatest Hits Volume 2. This also came from my aunt. I'm a big fan of studio albums over compilations, but I do like to own compilations if and when they present themselves to me. This Super Trooper is one of the first albums I bought with my own money. It came from a bookstore in my hometown. It actually has Super Trooper on it, which is the song that sort of got me into ABBA. Here we have Gracias por la Música, the Spanish album that they released because they knew they had a lot of Spanish fans. It has some good songs on it. Even if I don't speak Spanish and whatnot, I know the lyrics of the songs well enough that I can well enough that I can understand the Spanish version, even if I'm not a Spanish speaker. Here is a promotional copy of their live album, which I got from a local eBay seller in 2007, I think, when I was in university. The only difference from what I can see between this promo version and the regular version is that it has this promo stamp at the top of the back of it. And rather than being in a gatefold, it's just a non-gatefold sleeve. So there's that. This is cool. This I got from eBay from a local seller. This is the Visitors. You can see it has a cool Zeller's hype sticker on it from when we still had good classic Canadian retail. So that is great. That's their last studio album. We have the singles the first 10 years. They made this when they were going to take a hiatus and go off on a break. And they thought, well, we'll make this with all of our singles from the first 10 years of us being together. And then after we're done our break, we'll come back and record more. And then they, for many, many, many years until we hit Voyage, the studio album that came out 2 years ago, or maybe it was last year, the one that I haven't picked up yet. That one, yeah, their break was way longer than they had expected, and so they don't have the singles the next 10 years. We also have Love Songs, a special collection, which I'm not sure if this is an official ABBA release or not, but it has a few things on it that are not on the studio albums, like Cassandra, which is really good. Yeah, so that's the ABBA. Now we move into Canada's own Bryan Adams. This is his first album. It's not my favorite of the Bryan Adams that I own, but it's pretty good. We have You Want It, You Got It, which I bought this because it has Jealousy on it. And Jealousy was written by Bryan Adams and Lindsay Mitchell for the Prism album Armageddon. And Bryan did his own cover of it on this album, on his second album. And his cover is okay, but it's definitely not the Prism version of the song. So I would much rather listen to Prism do that song than Bryan Adams. We have Cuts Like a Knife. Obviously, Cuts Like a Knife is one of his better albums. Not quite his magnum opus, because his magnum opus is clearly Reckless. I got Cuts Like a Knife, Reckless, and the next album, Into the Fire, at a record show in 2009. And yeah, they're just great albums. If you like Bryan Adams and you don't have them, what are you doing? So here's Into the Fire. This has Remembrance Day on it, a song I always try to play every November 11th, or Remembrance Day, because it's important to remember history, lest you repeat it. We've got Alan Parsons, Eye in the Sky. This is a great album, and it's one of my newer editions, actually. It came from this year, I think, from the local flea market, which is great. April Wine, Greatest Hits. This came from my aunt. This has a lot of their greatest hits on it, but obviously April Wine has a large catalog, and this came out rather early in their releases. So Um, it is missing a few hits from their later days. We have Stand Back, which is more great April wine. Um, if you know Tonight is a Wonderful Time to Fall in Love, that's on this album. That's a great song. That is probably my second favorite April wine song. My favorite being You Won't Dance With Me, which is on Forever for Now, which is wonderful. The version of You Won't Dance With Me that is on Forever for Now has an extra verse, which is not included in the version that is on the Greatest Hits album. So that's an interesting factoid. We have Not Fragile, one of the best releases from Bachman Turner Overdrive, because who doesn't like Bachman Turner Overdrive? Especially when you share a last name with Charles Frederick Turner, but I'm probably not related to him at all. And then we have Four Wheel Drive as well, which is more Bachman Turner Overdrive. Oh, hang on. I realize something right now. I'm sorry, I've made a bit of a mistake here. I'm not sure. Well, yeah. I'll just change that text now. So we have B for Bachman Turner Overdrive. Now I'm going to just put away the A and the Bachman Turner Overdrive stuff and get the rest of the B's out here. If you give me just a second, I will be right back. Alrighty, let's drop the A section back in the shelf, plus the accidental Bachman Turner Overdrive. I suppose I was bound to make a mess up here and there. You can't be perfect. And I'm not going to edit this video. I'm just going to post as is. So my B section begins with, well, Bachman Turner Overdrive. And then we have the Beatles, Please Please Me. This is a nice mono Parlophone pressing. I got this album shortly before I got married because it was a good deal, and I was in the record store specifically to buy with the Beatles, because at our wedding, my wife and I had a venue that had a CD player, and you could make a playlist of whatever you want, burn it on a CD, and play that, and you didn't have to have a DJ. And for our first dance as a married couple, we used Hold Me Tight, which is track 2 on side 2 of With the Beatles. So I needed to legally own Hold Me Tight. So I got those two 14 years ago now, before I got married. My first Beatles studio album I ever owned is Abbey Road, here. Famous picture of the Beatles walking across the crosswalk. Yada yada. It's funny that I have such a huge gap in my Beatles studio discography. This came from my aunt. It is the red vinyl Capitol pressing of 1962 to 66. It's one of very few colored records in my collection. And we have the blue vinyl 1967 to 1970 to go along with it. Those are packed full of bangers. Now we also have the Beatles at the Hollywood Bowl. This I got from my brother, who got it from my aunt, the same one who gave me all the other albums. Her husband's parents gave him this album for helping them clean out their house, and he doesn't collect vinyl and doesn't have, or didn't at the time, collect vinyl or have a record player. And he's like, hey, you like records? You want this Beatles at the Hollywood Bowl I got for free from our aunt's in-laws? So that's how I got the Beatles at the Hollywood Bowl. This album is my mom's favorite album. This is not my mom's copy. I bought my own copy of Beck, Bogart, and a Piece because you have to love a supergroup that basically puts vanilla fudge on a cactus and sticks it in your ear holes, if you will. Yeah, Jeff Beck, Tim Bogart, and Carmine Appice. Very, very good. If you haven't heard it, I recommend you get it in your ear holes. We have the Bee Gees Gold with a lot of their early work, which I love their early work. It's less disco than the later stuff. And don't get me wrong, I like their disco stuff too, but I like this. It's really good. Gold, Volume 1. This next one, there's a funny story behind. This is Here at Last, Bee Gees Live. I bought this in a Value Village many years ago, probably 10 or 15, or less than 15, but probably around 10. And I got it home and I realized there was only one of the two discs inside because I'd forgotten to check when I was in the store. And so for many years I owned just disc 2. And so finally I had to go to a record store somewhere and re-buy it, another copy of it, to get disc 1 because I was short on that. This next one, Spirits Having Flown. This is really great. I love Tragedy. Tragedy is one of my favorite of their more disco-y sort of songs. This one came from my aunt, as did the Bee Gees Gold. Now we have Boney M, Love for Sale, another one that came from my aunt. It's great. Some very nice music on there. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't own Night Flight to Venus. Because, I mean, who doesn't love Rasputin? And we're coming close to the end of the B section with Boston. Unfortunately, Brad Delp was taken from us far too soon. He is my number 3 overall when it comes to male vocalists, behind only Freddie Mercury and Steve Perry. So I really have to say I was very sad the day Brad Delp passed away. Boston and Don't Look Back come from my aunt. This is one of my favorite album covers. The album art is so wonderful on it. Boston is also I would say Boston is the greatest debut album among my entire collection. And now we have, at last of the B section, Third Stage. Because everybody can use more Boston. So now let me just come here and I'll change the letter to C. And we will bring out the C section. I've got a lot of C's here. Ooh, don't want my A's falling over. One moment while I get the seeds. Take that out. Put my bees back in the shelf. And then we'll come over here with the seed section. The C's begin with Johnny Cash's greatest hits. I love Johnny Cash. My grandmother was a big Johnny Cash fan. The Ray Charles Singers, the best of. I bought this when I was visiting my grandparents, thinking that it had something to do with Ray Charles, the blind pianist. But this is a very different Ray Charles. Same name, different guy. Not my favorite album. But like I say, my collection is Hotel California, so it can't leave. We have Cheap Trick, the first artist among the collection who I have seen live. I saw them last spring at the Saddle Dome with Heart. This is in color. It's very decent. It's not my favorite of their albums, though. My favorite of their albums I own is Heaven Tonight. I love Heaven Tonight. I love Surrender. Surrender is the song that got me really into Cheap Trick. And so, yeah. And we have Dream Police as well. Dream Police is wonderful. I love Dream Police. And we have At Budokan. This one came from my aunt, but I believe it used to belong to my uncle, she said. So it's their live album. It's what made them famous. It's really great. This is All Shook Up. Not my favorite of their works, but I like them. And so, yeah, you got to have works by the artists you like. I have One on One. And the interesting factoid about One on One is this is Robin Zander, Bunny Carlos, Rick Nielsen. But that, across from Robin Zander, is not Tom Peterson. Tom Peterson was not with Cheap Trick on One. He left to go be the manager of the band that his wife was in, and they got a replacement bass player for that album. And then on the next one, Tom came back. Then we have the EP, Found All the Parts. This is a recent acquisition. We've got even more Cheap Trick. This is Lap of Luxury. This one has The Flame on it, which is their first #1 single. Surprisingly, I'm surprised they didn't have a #1 single before The Flame. And now we get more Canadian content. We have Chilliwack, the first album by Chilliwack. And Chilliwack, the second album by Chilliwack, which happens to have the first name, or the same name as the first album by Chilliwack. All Over You from Chilliwack, which is interesting because on the album cover, one of the songs is listed here as CS Man. And if you look at it on the record itself, it has C and then a bunch of asterisks and then man. So the title's been censored, and the actual title of the song is Chicken Shit Man. So, yeah, that's rather interesting. We have Rocker Box by Chilliwack. If you're in the US and you get this album, it'll have a different album cover on it. They did a different album cover for the US version. We have Riding High, also by Chilliwack. These are great guys from my home province of British Columbia. They're awesome. They're the second artist among my collection whom I have seen in concert. Bill Henderson is 80 years old, and the man can still sing like the Dickens. He is great. This is Lights from the Valley. This is more Chilliwack. This next one is Dreams, Dreams, Dreams. Also more Chilliwack. And I believe this one has in the credits of it, thanks to L. Ron Hubbard, because at the time, I guess Bill Henderson and all of his bandmates were into Scientology. So there's that. This is Breakdown in Paradise, more Chilliwack. We have Wanna Be a Star, which is even more Chilliwack. And yeah. And then we have here Opus 10. This album is kind of funny. It's got a lot of their greatest hits on it. It's got What You Gonna Do. It's got it's got a lot of good stuff on it. But it was recorded during the time that Mushroom Records was failing due to their lawsuit over their contract with Heart. And because Chilliwack was signed to Mushroom and Mushroom was going into bankruptcy, they were not allowed to record anything for Chilliwack. So, if I'm remembering correctly, Brian McLeod and Bill Henderson got on Brian McLeod's boat, Grand Marnier, and went out into the Strait of Georgia in the Southern Gulf Islands and recorded a bunch of material for what would become this album and listed it as being by the Headpins, which were Brian's other project on the tapes, because they technically weren't allowed to record for Chilliwack at the time. And then once the whole Mushroom ending, blah, 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 was finished, then they were able to release that album as Chilliwack. And yeah, so that's my interesting Chilliwack fact. We have Look In, Look Out, which is their last studio album. We have Segue, which is basically their greatest hits. It's my most recent acquisition. There's only 2 Chilliwack albums I don't own. I don't own There and Back Live, which came out as a Record Store Day pressing in 2021 for Record Store Day Canada on vinyl for the first time. And I don't own Greatest Hits, which is the same track listing as Segue, but using album versions instead of single versions. And that, I think, only exists on CD. So there's that. We have Commander Cody and his Lost Planet Airmen live at the Armadillo Hall from deep in the heart of Texas. This one used to belong to my mother. I found it among my aunt's collection, and we went from there. This is Creedence Clearwater Revival, the Royal Albert Hall concert. This one I borrowed from a friend of mine, and then he moved away. And I've been unable to find him to give it back to him. I'd like to give it back to him because I also do have a sealed copy that I should really open one day and uh, play my sealed one, which is in obviously better condition than the one I borrowed from him. So we have that. Color by numbers. You'd be remiss if you like the kind of music that I do if you didn't own Color by Numbers from Culture Club. I almost saw Culture Club live, but they canceled the show and refunded us all of our money before it happened. So that was the unfortunate thing about Culture Club. And then we have Burton Cummings of the Guess Who fame with his first solo album, Burton Cummings. Burton Cummings, My Own Way to Rock, his second solo album. This one is great. I might have to try to replace this one because it's a little bit warped on the outside edge, and you can sort of hear it in Never Had a Lady Before, which is my favorite song on the album. So there's that. But it came out of a bargain bin, so I can't really complain. Dream of a Child. This is his third album. Woman Love, Burton Cummings' fourth solo release. I got all 5 of the Burton Cummings first solo albums out of a bargain bin on the same day for $1 a piece. So I call that a good score. So now I'm going to come here and we'll change over to the D section because we have D's to go through and we're making pretty good time actually, I think. So A, B, and C are the contents of the first cube of the shelf. I try when I'm putting albums in the shelf to not not split artists between cubes. So that's just a little quirk of my organization. Machine Head, Deep Purple. Everybody needs Deep Purple. I bought this from that same local eBay seller that the ABBA Live and the Visitors came from. He was very kind. He would drop off to my university dorm. He would drop off anything I bought from him so that I didn't have to go on the bus to find him. Perfect Strangers, the reunion of Deep Purple Mark II. This came from my aunt. It's really, really great. Not as great as Machine Head, but hey, what can you do? They can't all be Machine Head. John Denver and the Muppets, A Christmas Together. This is one of the few records from my childhood. It's a great Christmas album. If you need a Christmas album and you want a good Christmas album, there's that. We have Cognac and Bologna, the first album by Doug and the Slugs, which is really an awesome album. And Music for the Heart of Thinking, another Doug and the Slugs. So that is the relatively short D section. Compared to the C, D is very compared to the C, D is very short, small. but some letters are bound to be smaller than others. So I'm just gonna pop down here and grab out the E section. If you could hand me the E's, I will gladly share with you my E artists. On the border, the Eagles. This one has a lot of good stuff on it. This came from my aunt, as did many of my Eagles. My parents had an Eagles cover band at their wedding, and their first dance was Peaceful Easy Feeling. So when I got married, I made sure to play that early on in the night so that they could have a dance, which was pretty great. One of these nights, more good Eagles. I am definitely not the dude because I like the Eagles. Hotel California. Everybody gotta have some Hotel California in your life. The top selling album, if I recall correctly, of the 20th century. The Eagles, their greatest hits, 1971 to 1975. That is a really great greatest hits album. If you want to get just some Eagles and you don't care about having only hits, then there's that. Out of the Blue by Electric Light Orchestra, which is widely considered to be one of their greatest albums. My mother saw Electric Light Orchestra in concert when they opened for Deep Purple before they became at all big. And so she got to see ELO and Deep Purple on the same ticket. And I am so jealous. I wasn't born yet, obviously, but we have Discovery. Very nice ELO album. We have ELO's Greatest Hits. This one belonged to my father. He liked ELO, which is funny. He was a country guy, and Deep Purple and ELO, some Dr. Hook, that kind of stuff, and Time, also my father's ELO album. In the case of my father's albums, I ripped him copies of them and gave him the rips. So there's that. So I'm gonna switch over to the F section. One moment. Okay, let's see. So I've got to get the F's. Now, the F section, F, F, F. F is for fun stuff. One moment, let me just move the F's. F is a very small section. So we'll grab the F's. Drop the E's back in the shelf. Mark off the mark off the F's. We have Frozen Ghost. Frozen Ghost is several of the members of the Canadian group Sheriff. After Sheriff disbanded, they formed Frozen Ghost. This is a really good, this is their first album. I love the song Should I See on here. It's really good. This is Arnold Lanny and Wolf Hassel from Sheriff. And though I wouldn't say Frozen Ghost is as good as Sheriff, if you want to know the truth, I like Frozen Ghost enough that I have it here. Then we have Fleetwood Mac, which is obviously something people should have in their collection. And Rumors. Everybody has Rumors. This Rumors used to belong to somebody named Randy, it says on the cover. I love finding things like that, where you find somebody has scrawled their name on the cover of your album. So let's move from F into G. G is a larger section than F, for sure. So let me find G. That's H. That's H. G, here we go. I don't have alphabet dividers in my shelf, but I should really think about getting some. That would make this a lot easier. All right. Another one of the artists I've seen live in concert, and one of the best concerts I've ever seen, Glass Tiger. This is their magnum opus and their debut album, The Thin Red Line. This has Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone. It has Someday. It has The Thin Red Line, obviously. It is really a great album. I have a 12-inch single of Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone with an extended version of the track on it. And it also has Do You Want to Dance With Me on the B-side, which is previously unreleased. It's also the B-side of one of the singles from The Thin Red Line. We have a 12-inch single of Someday, which is an extended single mix on side 1 and a dub mix, and the 7-inch single mix as side 2. We have Diamond Sun, their second album. This one, my favorite song on this is definitely My Song, but I also do love all the songs on here. I've never found a Glass Tiger album that wasn't just bangers upon bangers, so there's that. This is a 12-inch single of Diamond Sun, which has Diamond Sun Extended Remix as the side A, Diamond Sun in French, and Diamond Sun, the single version, as side B. We have a 12-inch single of My Song, which has My Song extended mix by Kevin Unger for Razorcom as the side A, and side B is the single version of My Song and Far Away From Here. We have their 33 EP, which I got from their website. I think this one, let me just check. I haven't done this for any of the other albums, but yes, this one is a red pressing of 33. It's an opaque red pressing. It has some really good stuff on it. This was after Alan Frew had a stroke, if I'm remembering correctly, and he was worried he might not be able to continue making music. So they made that EP and after he recovered, and it was really great. And then this is their Christmas album, Songs for a Winter's Night. This is on white vinyl. Um, they do a cover on here of Song for a Winter's Night by Gordon Lightfoot. And there is also Ode for a Winter's Night, which is a poem by Alan Frew, narrated by Gordon Lightfoot. During COVID, when they made this album, they went to Gordon Lightfoot and asked if he would read the poem that Alan had written. And they gave Gordon an iPhone and stayed 6 feet away from each other when they handed over the iPhone, kind of like, I don't remember exactly how they handed him the iPhone, but they got him an iPhone and he went in his house and he recorded the poem on the iPhone and then he handed it back to them and they put it on the album. And it's great because Gordon Lightfoot died shortly thereafter, so it's wonderful. You know, they asked him if they could cover Song for a Winter's Night, and then they had him read the poem, and it's always good. Then we have the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack from the first movie, the deluxe edition with the Awesome Mix Volume 1 and the movie score. We have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I didn't buy the soundtrack to the third movie because I didn't really like the selection of songs they used in the third movie as much as the first two, unfortunately. This album here is Canned Wheat Packed by the Guess Who from 1969. It has on it the hit single Laughing, which, if I recall correctly, was written on the Guess Who's tour bus, either while they were waiting in line for a ferry to Victoria or on the ferry itself to Victoria. And I know there's probably no way to find out any closer than what I've managed to glean already. But if they were on a ferry or waiting for a ferry on Route 1 to Wasson Schwartz Bay in 1969, that means they would have been on either the any of the four of the Burnaby class at the time, later Victoria class vessels that were serving that route at the time. So Motor Vessel Queen of Vancouver, Victoria, Esquimalt, or Saanich. And it would be really interesting to me as a ferry person, a BC ferry person, to find out which vessel the Guess Who were on when they wrote Laughing, or were waiting for when they wrote Laughing. Then we have the Best of the Guess Who, which I really have to replace this because this one I got in a bargain bin at a bookstore, and it plays, but it's very surface noise heavy, and it's clearly been loved by whoever owned it before me. So, yeah. So let's go on to the H section now. We are all in the H's. I will grab those. If you give me one moment here. H. Here we are. Put the G section back. And we'll get the H section, starting with Harlequin, Victim of a Song. Great band out of Winnipeg, Manitoba. This has Sweet Things in Life on it. It's Victim of a Song. It's, yeah, a lot of good stuff on here. Definitely not their magnum opus, but hey. Then we do have their magnum opus, as far as most people would be concerned. Love Crimes. This has Innocence, which was their biggest hit, at least as far as here in Canada goes. Yeah, Innocence, Love on the Rocks, Thinking of You, It's All Over Now, Heaven, Dial 999, Saying Goodbye to the Boys, Wait for the Night, Crime of Passion, Can't Hold Back, Midnight Magic. It's just a great album. Harlequin, One False Move. The big one on here is I Did It for Love, but it also has Superstitious Feeling, which is a great track to listen to on Halloween. Then we have their self-titled album this one's from 1984, from the year I was born. It's a nice album. I enjoy Harlequin. And now we have the Headpins, that other project I mentioned with Brian McLeod. This band is interesting. It was the original band where Matthew Frenette, the drummer from Loverboy, was in Headpins, and he decided he wanted to leave and go play with his friend Paul Dean that he had been in Streetheart previously with, and go join Loverboy. And Bernie Oben, the drummer of Loverboy at the time, Loverboy hadn't put anything out yet. They hadn't even really chosen the name Loverboy. It was around that time that they chose the name Loverboy. Bernie Oben was their drummer, and he said, well, tell you what, I'll just switch places with you. You go be in Loverboy, and I'll be in the Headpins. And so this is Bernie Oben, Ab Bryant, who was on the first Prism album, Brian Too Loud McLeod, and Darby Mills. And yeah, this is great. This has their biggest hit, I would say, Don't It Make You Feel. If you haven't heard the Headpins and you like female lead singers, women who sing great, yeah, get yourself some Darby Mills in your ear holes. They're another good BC band. Then we have Line of Fire by the Headpins as well. This one has, my favorite one on here is Feel It, Feel My Body. That's their second album. Then we have their third album, Head Over Heels. They also are weird in that they only put out 3 albums, but they also made 3 greatest hits collections. And none of their greatest hits collections, I don't believe, are on vinyl. And none of them have the exact same track listing. And none of them have any tracks that aren't on the albums. So it's weird like that. Up next, we have an artist I've seen live again. I saw Heart last year. They used to play the dances at UBC when my mom was in university, before this first album, Dreamboat Annie, came out. And they are the interesting Canadian content in my collection, because they count as Canadian content because they made a lot of their music in Vancouver. Despite them being founded in Seattle, some of their members were trying, apparently, to flee the draft and from being drafted into the Vietnam War. So they fled to Canada and made a bunch of music up here in Canada. We have Little Queen, their second album, which might not have been their second album if things had gone how Mushroom Records had wanted, because they had a contract to make 2 albums with Mushroom Records. The second one would have been Magazine. And when they left Mushroom and didn't make the second album, Mushroom put a bunch of stuff together and made Magazine and released it basically illegally. And it only came out in very limited quantities in certain areas of, I think, the US. And so then the band was forced to allow Mushroom to release a more polished version of Magazine, which is their third album. If I'm remembering that all correctly, the whole Mushroom and Heart falling out and falling apart and yada yada. Dog and Butterfly, the first Heart album I got, probably my least favorite of their albums I own. But hey. Private Audition is another good Heart album. Baby Lestrange, more good Heart. You gotta have some Heart in your collection. This is their greatest hits album and their live album. It says Heart on the jacket, but everywhere I find it online, they call it greatest hits / live. So, yeah. Passion Works, more Heart. And Heart. This is one of my favorite of their albums. This one has What About Love on it, which is originally recorded during the sessions for Get It On Credit by the artist Toronto. But 2 of the members of Toronto who wrote and fought to have that album or that song recorded and wanted it on the album were told no by the rest of the band. So they left Toronto and gave the song to Heart. And yeah, that is one of my favorite Heart albums. Probably that and Dreamboat Annie are my 2 favorite. Although I also do love Bad Animals. This has Alone on it, which is an I-10 cover, which has been reversed from being a man singing about wanting a woman and being unable to tell her, to being a woman singing about wanting a man. And then we have more Canadian content with Walking the Razor's Edge by Helix. This I got last weekend. This has Rock You on it, which is probably the song that most people would know of Helix if they know anything of Helix. Roger Hodgson, In the Eye of the Storm. This is his first solo album after he left Supertramp. It's really good. If you like Supertramp, it's kind of like Supertramp. But it's Roger Hodgson. Honeymoon Suite, The Big Prize. This one has their biggest hit in the US on it. So if you know Honeymoon Suite and you're an American, you probably know them because of Feel It Again. These guys are from Niagara Falls, the honeymoon capital of the world. That's why they call themselves Honeymoon Suite. And we also have Dare by the Human League. This has Don't You Want Me on it. So that is a good song to have in your collection if you like that kind of music. Let me just put away the H's and we will move on to the I section. We're almost halfway through because M is halfway. Through the alphabet, that is. Oh, come on. Trying to fit these H's back in here. There's a lot of H's. I put them back in the shelf without pushing the surrounding letters too far back. I is very small comparatively. I is Iron Butterfly, In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. My mom loves In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, but she only really knows In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida and not anything else on that album. Then we have, from BC here, we have Iron Horse. This band is a band, they only made 2 albums, and basically the only person that is on both of the albums is Randy Bachman of Guess Who and Bachman Turner Overdrive fame. Yeah, they've only made 2 albums. They made Iron Horse and they made Everything Is Gray, which has Frank Ludwig of Trooper fame on it after his departure from Trooper. So that is all of my I albums. Let's move on to J. J has far more than I. Or slightly more than I suppose. I'll just slide the I's back in here. Oop. And then we'll get the J section. It was interesting. I saw someone the other day who had their collection organized where they had solo projects of members of a group next to that group, which I found was interesting, but that's not how I've done mine. So for J, we have Journey. We have Evolution. This is the one with Lovin', Touchin', Squeezin' on it. Yeah, and it's a decent album. We've got Departure. This one has Any Way You Want It. We've got Escape, and magnum opus, I would say. This has Don't Stop Believing. This has Open Arms. Yeah, it's just loaded with good stuff. Those 2 came from my aunt. Or, sorry, Escape came from my aunt. The first 2 I got in various thrift stores and whatnot. Captured. This also came from my aunt. It's my absolute favorite live album in my collection, I would say. It came out, unfortunately, before Escape, so all of the tracks that are on Escape are not on that album. And then Frontiers. This is an upgrade of of an album that came from my aunt. My aunt's copy was not in the greatest condition, so I upgraded. And that, after Frontiers, is all the J. I guess we only have Journey in J. So let's move on to the letter K. Oh, 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 oh. Huh? Oh, that's Iron Horse. Iron Horse, come on. For K, we have only 2 albums. For K, we have The Kings Are Here. Great Canadian group, The Kings. This has their biggest hit outside of Canada in it, and their biggest hit inside of Canada on it. The double song, This Beat Goes On, and Switch into Glide, which form together in the same way as, like, if you know Foreplay and Long Time by Boston, they go together in that same way. That's a great album. And then I also have Amazon Beach by the Kings, which is not as good as their first album, but it's something to own because it's the Kings, and I enjoy the Kings. Let me move on to the L section now. Get up my L's and change the alphabet letter so you know that we're in the L's. We start off the L's with John Lennon and Yoko Ono, Double Fantasy. That one came from my aunt, I believe. This next one is a return to analog repress, limited to 500 copies. This is 479 of Lisa Lougheed, Evergreen Nights. If you're a Canadian child of a certain age, you will remember the animated series The Raccoons, and you will remember its theme song, Run With Us. Lisa Lougheed recorded that. She thought she was just doing the theme song for an animated series, but CBC had her record an entire album. And original pressings of this are like unicorn excrement. And there is absolutely no way that I could afford an original pressing. Apparently the original pressing sounds way better than this pressing, but I don't mind how this one sounds. Apparently this one was made from playback of an original pressing that they recorded, and then they cut from that. So that's why it doesn't sound as good as it could. But yeah, I wanted this album for a long time, and when I saw that they were repressing it, this Return to Analog label out of Quebec, I had to have it. And I know I'm probably never going to stumble upon an original somewhere at a price where I can actually afford it, so there's that. And then we have Loverboy, the first album by Loverboy. This one came from my aunt. Not such good condition on the sleeve, but hey, the vinyl is the more important portion of it, and if the sleeve is in bad condition, it really doesn't matter to me. Loverboy, Get Lucky, their second album. This has Working for the Weekend on it. It's really awesome. This is Loving Every Minute of It, which is great. This is their third album. This one has This Could Be the Night on it, which is one of my favorite songs by Loverboy. I've seen Loverboy live. I took my wife to see them when she was still my girlfriend. We had just been dating a couple of months, and we saw that Loverboy was playing like 2 towns over from us. So we got tickets and we went to see Loverboy. Then we have more Loverboy. We have Keep It Up. These guys are great, and they're also British Columbians, so there's that. I think they were formed, maybe they sort of, the nexus for them was formed out in Alberta, but they really became who they were in BC, so we'll count them as BC. And then we have Wildside, their fifth album, which has Notorious on it, which Notorious is great. Wildside on the whole is not my favorite album, Loverboy, but Notorious is great. So we'll change the letter here to the M section, which puts us halfway through the alphabet. Halfway through the alphabet is the letter M. So let's just drop the M. All right. We'll start off the M section strong with Mannheim Steamroller Christmas from 1984. My absolute favorite version I've ever heard of Deck the Halls. My favorite Christmas album of all time, I would say. And we have Mannheim Steamroller's third Christmas album, Christmas in the Air. This was recently pressed on vinyl for the first time. It has a really good version of Joy to the World on it. But Christmas albums are Christmas albums. Everybody should own a few good Christmas albums. Yeah. We have Martha and the Muffins, Metro Music. This has Echo Beach on it, which is their biggest hit. And it has a song on here that always reminds me of my dad. Cheeses and Gum. Because when I was growing up, that was 2 things my dad always had, was cheesies and gum. I don't know, like never at the same time, but he loved eating cheesies and he loved eating chewing gum. So, yeah. We have Martika. If you asked me when I was younger if I would ever have an album like circa 2004 when I started heavily collecting, if you asked me if I'd ever own something with Fergie on it, I would say probably not. But this has Toy Soldiers on it, and Martika got a bunch of her Kids Incorporated classmates, or castmates, sorry, to come on the album and sing backing vocals in Toy Soldiers. And yeah, and this also has a good cover of I Feel the Earth Move by Carole King. It's a nice little album to have. We have something everybody should have. We have some Bat Out of Hell, Meatloaf. We have Dead Ringer for Love, the only place in my collection where you can find Cher. Cher is backing vocals on Dead Ringer. Both of those came from my aunt. As well as Midnight at the Lost and Found, which came from her as well. So there's that. And more good Canadian content. Men Without Hats. Pop Goes the World. If you only know the safety dance, you should really look into some more Men Without Hats, especially Pop Goes the World. I mean, Johnny played guitar, Jenny played bass. And here, the last M is Walter Murphy, a fifth of Beethoven. This is great. This has disco versions of a lot of classical music. It has Beethoven's fifth. It has Chopin's Prelude No. 4 in E minor. It has Rimsky-Korsakov's Flight of the Bumblebee, Tchaikovsky's Piano Concerto No. 1 in B flat minor. Yeah, it's just really great. It's disco versions of a lot of your favorite classic hits from classical music. So we will go on from there. Into the second half of the alphabet now. The second half of the alphabet. There are no artists in my collection that begin with the letter N. I'm severely lacking Nazareth, I see. But we have one album that begins with O, and that is Play Deep by The Outfield. The funny story with this is I found this in a bargain bin at the flea market here, and I bought it because it has Your Love on it, obviously. And the day I bought it, I also got a deal on a huge box of 45s there. And I didn't even look at the 45s before I bought them because it was such a good deal. And I brought the 45s home, and among the 45s, there was a 45 of Your Love. So it was great getting Your Love twice. There's my O section, which is just the outfield. And now let's grab the P section. Oh, hang on, that's not P, that's Q. This is P. I've got a lot of P in here. A lot of P albums. P artists. So we'll change from O all the way over to P. P is for Painter. Painter are Canadian. They had one hit, West Coast Woman, and they only made one album. Some of their members, like the lead singer here, Doran Beatty, went on to form Hammersmith. So if you know Hammersmith, this is some of the guys from Hammersmith before they were in Hammersmith. And if you haven't heard West Coast Woman, you should hear West Coast Woman. The other stuff on the album is great too. My friend Alan's uncle is the drummer on that album. So that's pretty cool. We have Steve Perry, Street Talk. Great first solo album from Steve Perry. That one comes from my aunt. And we have Traces by Steve Perry. This one I got on a sale in Sunrise Records. It's one of the few albums I bought new in my life. Yeah. We have 10 Years Together by Peter, Paul, and Mary. This one used to belong to my mom. It is an amazing album. I love that album. And now more Canadiana, some Platinum Blonde. This is their first EP. It has 6 tracks on it, and it was sometimes referred to as 6-track attack. That's pretty great. And then we have their first studio album, Standing in the Dark, which is the same 6 tracks from the EP plus 4 new tracks added to it. And it has the same album art, except they've added the title, Standing in the Dark, to it. We have Alien Shores, the second album from Platinum Blonde. This one has Crying Over You on it, which is great. I love Hungry Eyes, the last track on this album. It's wonderful. Platinum Blonde is great. We've got Uncut by the Powder Blues Band. This is Tom Lavin, who was on the first album by Prism. This is a 1979 original Blue Wave Records pressing, which, even if you look on Discogs, you won't see, it doesn't tell you, but these original 1979 Blue Wave pressings have 10 tracks on them. It has Gimme Some Lovin', which is a Spencer Davis group cover, as track 10. And in later pressings of this album, they removed that. This album I got out of a bargain bin, and unfortunately, there's a locked groove skip that I want to look into with a microscope that happens in the middle of Buzzard Luck, track 1 on side 2. So I'd like to look and see if I can figure out what is the cause of that, and maybe try to do some surgery and maybe get that fixed. But that's okay, because I also have the later RCA reissue of the album. This is one of the few places in which I have duplicates of the same album. This one I got first, and this one only has 9 tracks on it. This has all their great hits on it. It has Doing It Right, it has Sweet Little Girl, it has Boppin' with the Blues. Yeah, this is just great. I love the Powder Blues. More good British Columbians. This is Thirsty Ears by the Powder Blues. More Powder Blues. Yeah. Thirsty Ears is great. Ooh, Party Line. Even more Powder Blues. Their third studio album. Party Line, Powder Blues, Red Hot True Blue, which is a 2-disc album. It's good. Powder Blues. We have Powder Blues Live at Montreux. Not my favorite live album, but definitely a good live album. It's nice to have. And now we get into another artist I've seen live, Prism. This is signed by Al Harlow. This is their debut album, which features Ron Tabak on lead vocals, Lindsay Mitchell on lead guitar and vocals, Tom Lavin on rhythm guitar and vocals, John Hall on keyboards and vocals, Ab Bryant on bass, and Rodney Higgs on drums and keyboards. And you would be forgiven if you didn't know who Rodney Higgs is. Rodney Higgs is a pseudonym used by Jim Vallance, writer and producer and friend of Bryan Adams. He wasn't certain if Prism would take off or not, so he used a pseudonym when writing songs for Prism, and being in Prism. And he was only on their first album in terms of playing music, because he decided he just wanted to write and produce more than actually play music. So yeah. But when I saw them live, Al signed that. Because Al is the one remaining. Al Harlow is the one remaining member they have. He was from the Seeds of Time, and he's technically not on their first album, actually. But then we have this, which is a special limited edition radio DJ only blue vinyl live album that was only ever put out to radio stations. This I got on Discogs, because obviously you can't buy this as a normal person back in the day when it came out. This came out after Prism, but before their second album. So this has Ron Tabak, lead vocals, Lindsay Mitchell, lead guitar and background vocals, Alan Harlow, bass, slide guitar and background vocals, John Hall, keyboards and background vocals, and Rocket Norton on drums, which is their big famous lineup that everybody knows. So Al signed this when I saw them as well. He was excited to see that because he doesn't get to see that album very frequently in the hands of the people who see them in concert. This is their second album, See Forever Eyes. Same lineup, same Al Harlow autograph. Pretty great. A lot of good stuff on See Forever Eyes. A lot of good stuff on Prism too. Spaceship Superstar, Take Me to the Captain. Then we have Armageddon. This has Armageddon. This has Jealousy, Virginia. Yeah, just some great, great guys from BC here. And a sad, tragic story too with what happened with Ron Tabak. If you want to look it up, it's all on Wikipedia about his tragic death in a hit and run car accident. And he's actually the reason why many of the Lower Mainland's hospitals have head trauma units, because he came in after his hit and run accident on Christmas of '84 when he was riding without a helmet on his bicycle to go visit Al Harlow, and he got hit and run. They took him to the hospital. He started getting belligerent. They assumed maybe that he was drunk or on something. Police came, they took him to the drunk tank. Next thing you know, they find him dead in the drunk tank in the morning because brain aneurysm. So with 1984 technology, or early 80s technology, they didn't think to scan his head as well as they should have. He had been fired by the band shortly before that, but they were working on reuniting and putting together a reunion because he had worked over all of the problems that he had that led to his firing. So we then have All the Best from Prism, their greatest hits album, also signed by Al Harlow. Pretty cool. Young and Restless. This has their biggest hit in Canada, I believe, was Young and Restless. This is a great album, also signed by Al Harlow. I actually didn't intend for him to sign so many albums. Just like what happened with Trooper, I only intended for him to sign one because that's normally what you would expect out of a famous person, is that they'll sign one thing for you. But he was like, yeah, come on, let's go. And this is Small Change, again, Prism. This is after Ron got fired. This is from 1981. And this is Al Harlow, Rocket Norton, Lindsay Mitchell, and Henry Small. And John Hall elected not to come be on this album for keyboards. So yeah, but this has what was, I believe, their biggest hit in the US, Don't Let Him Know, for whatever reason. And then we have Beat Street, which is by Prism, but technically not part of a Prism discography, because Prism had broken up and one of the producers still had the rights to the name. So he put together a group of session musicians led by Henry Small to make an album, which Prism has disavowed as being part of their discography. The most famous thing about this album is probably the fact that Timothy B. Schmidt of Eagles fame is on here. Yeah, it's Henry Small and a bunch of session musicians claiming to be Prism, but not quite being Prism. So that's the P section. Now we'll move into the Qs, because obviously any good vinyl collection has Q artists in it. Every good vinyl collection has some Q artists. Whoop, 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 whoop. Gotta put away my P's. Here we go. We'll grab my Q's. And we'll start off the Q's with someone you might not expect. A husband and wife team from Oregon with Marv and Rindy Ross and Quarter Flash. This has Harden My Heart on it. Yeah, it's a wonderful album. Then we have their second album, Take Another Picture. A lot of good stuff on here. Take Another Picture. Actually, Take Another Picture is probably my favorite on here. And then I don't know if there's anything else I really enjoy on here, but it's a nice album to listen to. Then we have their third album, Back Into Blue, which is nice. And then the meat and potatoes of the Q with Queen. And Queen 2. And A Night at the Opera. And A Day at the Races. And News of the World. And The Game. And Flash Gordon. And Hot Space. And The Works. And also Queen plus Paul Rogers, The Cosmos Rocks. If you couldn't tell, I like Queen. There is the entirety of the Q section with Quarter Flash and Queen. So we'll head on to the R section. We're getting closer to the end now because I don't think I have anything much past T. So let's grab the R section here. One moment, if you will. R, R, R. Okay. We have the first album I ever owned, Singable Songs for the Very Young by Raffi. I saved it all these years, even when my mom wanted to get rid of it in a garage sale, because I thought, someday I'm going to have children, and I want my children to listen to that. So I'm glad I did. The Best of Johnny Rivers. This I got from my aunt. I got it for Secret Agent Man, which is on here. But the other stuff is pretty good too. Memphis, Maybelline, Midnight Special, Baby I Need Your Loving, Blue Suede Shoes. Yeah. We have a 12-inch single of The Look by Roxette, with the A-side is The Look Visible Mix and The Look Power Radio Mix. The B-side is The Look Big Red Mix, The Look Invisible Dub, and a demo version of Silver Blue. I love Roxette, so I had to have some of that. We have The Amazing Sound of the Royal Scots Dragoon Guard Pipe and Drum Band. This is on Dynaflex, which is a thin, sort of more flexible, but still sounds good type of vinyl. Yeah. Part of me has some Scottish heritage in me, so I figured why not. 2112, Rush. Everybody loves Rush, except for the few people I've met who didn't love Rush. And Moving Pictures, also by Rush. I need to get more Rush. I don't have nearly enough Rush. So that's the Rush and the R's. We'll move on to the S, which is one of my biggest sections. All the alphabet letters. But I guess you could say that would be the case because of how the English language works. And you know, Wheel of Fortune, the RSTLNE sort of thing. So we'll go here. Could you stop falling forward on me, Queen? I'm gonna get the first part of the S's out, because S is the one letter in the entire collection that is forced to span between two cubes. So we'll get the first cube worth of S's, and then we'll get the second cube worth of S's after the fact. Oh, here we are. So we'll start off the S with some great Canadian progressive rock, Saga. I love these guys. They are a more recent discovery of mine. I knew a few of their big hits before now, but I started buying their albums recently, and yeah, if you've never heard Saga, at least go on YouTube and look up On the Loose, if not some other stuff by them. Images at Twilight, their second album. Also a great one to have. Silent Night, their third album. Their first 4 albums actually have on them 8 different chapters, 2 songs per album, that detail the life of a young Albert Einstein. So that's kind of neat. Worlds Apart, their magnum opus, from what I can say. This has On the Loose. This has Wind Him Up. This is the album. If you own one Saga album, own Worlds Apart. This is In Transit. This is their first live album. This was recorded live in Munich, West Germany, and Copenhagen, Denmark. So this is from 1982. This is before the fall of the Iron Curtain. And then we have Heads or Tails by Saga. Another great Saga album. That one had its highest charting in Germany. Saturday Night Fever, the soundtrack from the movie. Scandal featuring Patti Smith, The Warrior. Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band, Live Bullet. That has Turn the Page on it, which I love Turn the Page. Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band, Night Moves. Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band, Stranger in Town. Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band, Against the Wind. Basically his magnum opus, if you ask me. I love this song, this album. It has Against the Wind. It has one of my favorite tracks by him. It has Betty Lou's Getting Out Tonight. Yeah, it's great. Those all came from my aunt, those Bob Segers. This is The Distance, and I did have my aunt's copy of this, but it had a big scratch in Roll Me Away that made it not play properly. So I upgraded it to a fresh, new used bargain bin. Sounds great. Copy of The Distance, which is really great. Nine Tonight, his second live album, Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band. Probably my least favorite live album in my collection. But it's Bob Seger, and I like Bob Seger, so. Like a Rock, Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band. Bob Seger by himself without the Silver Bullet Band, Ride Out. I have the album that came before this one that's only on CD, Face the Promise. I wish they would press that in vinyl, but they haven't done that yet. So that, and then Bob Seger, New UN, his last studio album he made. It's also some good stuff on here. I do like Ride Out better than I Knew You When, but hey. This album, Sharon Lois and Bram, Smorgasbord, Canadian Children's Entertainers, is surprisingly not from my childhood. When I was about 23, 24, I guess, my dad went to visit his parents on Vancouver Island. And he comes home and he says to me, "I got you a record." I said, "Oh?" And he goes, "Yes, I got you, here, have this." And he hands me Smorgasbord. And I'm like, "Why? I'm an adult now." And he goes, "Yeah, but I knew you liked these guys when you were a kid, so, and I know you like records, and I was in an antique store and I saw it." And I'm like, "Okay, sure, Dad, I guess." Cool. Then we have Sheriff. These guys were made famous. This is their only official album. They do have a promo live album that wasn't released to the public. They got famous for When I'm With You, which was made famous in the US by a radio DJ playing it years after the album came out. The lead singer, Freddie Curci, he is an opera singer by trade, and his friends came to him and said, "Hey, you want to join our band and be the singer? We know you can sing." And he's like, "Well, I've never really heard rock and roll. I sing opera." And they're like, "That's okay." And he held the world record for a while for longest held note on a number one single or whatever, for his note that he holds in When I'm With You. These guys are great. If you haven't heard at least When I'm With You, listen to that. Yeah. Oh, Born in the USA. This one I need to replace because it skips on Born in the USA. But this copy was given to me by my wife's father, who never really became my father-in-law because he passed away shortly before we got married. But he apparently had a big record collection at one point, and it all got stolen, except for this one Bruce Springsteen album that happened to be nestled among all of his laser discs. So when he found the Bruce Springsteen, he's like, "Hey, you have records. Here, take this." And so I took it, and yeah. We have another one of the albums from my childhood. The Stars Come Out on Sesame Street. This has Helen Reddy, Wonder Child. This has Johnny Cash and Oscar the Grouch singing Nasty Dan. The Pointer Sisters, Yes We Can. One Thing Leads to Another, Judy Collins with Biff. Sing After Me with Madeline Kahn and Grover. Judy Collins and the Sesame Street Kids, Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. Oh, What a Beautiful Morning, Ray Charles. How Do You Do, Lena Horne and Grover. 5 Feet High and Rising, Johnny Cash with Biff. A World Without Music, Jose Feliciano and the Sesame Street Kids. And I Make Up Songs with Helen Reddy. So it's not a bad album here. Something to listen to with my son, who is 7 years old and loves Sesame Street. Starship, Knee Deep in the Hoopla. We Built This City, and all those other great tunes from that era of Starship on there. No Protection, the Starship album that follows Knee Deep in the Hoopla. This one has Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now and It's Not Over Till It's Over on it, which is really wonderful set of tracks. This one, I also have the EP that goes with it. This is Jim Steinman, Bad for Good. This is an album, he made this album before his falling out with Meatloaf. He had written 6 tracks for an album for Meatloaf, and Meatloaf wrecked his voice with touring and drugs and other things, and could not sing the 6 tracks that Jim had made for him. So Jim said, "If you let me have these 6 tracks to record myself, I'll make you a whole other album in exchange." And that whole other album was Dead Ringer. So this is Bad for Good, which Meatloaf later recorded on Bat Out of Hell 3. It has Out of the Frying Pan and Into the Fire, which Meatloaf put on Bat Out of Hell 2. Yeah, it's really some good stuff. Jim Steinman is always great. He wrote a lot of great stuff for a lot of artists. This is Steppenwolf Live. Steppenwolf is great. More Canadians. Gotta love that. This is Steppenwolf 7. This is... This has Snowblind Friend on it. Yeah, that's a great album. 7 came from my aunt. This one, I probably can't show you the inside of the gatefold, But if you want to see the penis car, you can look it up online. This is for ladies only. That also came from my aunt. And Steppenwolf's The Best Of. This also came from my aunt. This has Born to Be Wild, Magic Carpet Ride, Monster, Rock Me, for ladies only. Yeah, it's really great. And then we have some British Columbian new wave with Strange Advance, Worlds Apart. This has She Controls Me on it, which is really great. Wasn't their biggest hit, but it's my favorite song from Strange Advance. Yeah. Then we have two, also Strange Advance. This has probably their biggest hit, We Run, on it. It's got some other good stuff on it. And we have their third album, The Distance Between, which has Love Becomes Electric on it, which is another one of their big hits. They have a fourth album, but I don't own it. It's only on CD, and I believe you can still buy it from the band directly, so I will have to buy that at some point in time, but I haven't done that as of yet. So let's slide all of these S's back into the shelf. The Seegers and the Strange Advance and all that good fun stuff. And we'll keep going on S. One moment. Here. Okay, let's see here. S, 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 S. Okay, there's T. This is the rest of the S. As you can tell, there's a lot of S. So we'll continue the S with the first EP by Streetheart, which was limited to 3,500 pressed. This is on red vinyl. I've seen about 4 of the 3,500 that are in existence. They were only given away as promotional material by WEA. This came out before Meanwhile Back in Paris. Yeah, it's Paul Dean and Matthew Frenette from Loverboy, Daryl Gathiel, Kenny Shields, and Ken Sinave, Spider, on bass. Spider played with Loverboy when I saw Loverboy live. So this is their first album, Meanwhile Back in Paris. Very, very good. My friend Alan's uncle is a member of Streetheart. This is Under Heaven Over Hell. This is the first version of Under Heaven Over Hell, which has Storyteller as the final song on the B-side. Not the later pressing with Under My Thumb on the B-side, which is this pressing. Under My Thumb is a Rolling Stones cover. It's the final song on the B-side. It also has Here Comes the Night, which is a good cover from I think it's Lulu, if I recall correctly. Then we have the 12-inch single of Under My Thumb, which has Under My Thumb on side A and Baby's Got a Gun on side B. We have Quicksand Shoes their next album. This is actually my least favorite Streetheart album, if you want to know the truth. But I love all Streetheart, so hey. Drugstore Dancer. These guys are great. They're from Saskatchewan. And then Action, the best of Streetheart, because every big band needs to have a greatest hits collection somewhere in their works. Streetheart, the self-titled album. This one has Snow White on it, Look in Your Eyes, Miss Plaza Suite. It's great. Dancing with Danger, not as good as the previous work, but still something good to have. Live After Dark, their live album. They've put out a new version of this live album with one additional bonus track on it. I don't own that because I didn't feel I needed to. This is Buried Treasure, which is a bunch of outtakes and songs that were not included on albums. Buried Treasure is a compilation of tracks which, with the exception of Look in Your Eyes, were never before released. Hot Cherry is on here, or Hot Cherie, was a hit for Danny Spanos in 1983, and Walk on Water was recorded in October 1983, intended to be released on the Live After Dark album, and Look in Your Eyes is a different version of the song included on the Streetheart album. It was recorded during the same sessions that produced the hit What Kind of Love Is This? The balance of the songs on Buried Treasure were recorded during the Streetheart album sessions, in which over 20 songs were recorded, but only 9 were released. So yeah, it's good. It's a lot of cool stuff you wouldn't find elsewhere. We have 40 Years of Rock and Roll, Volume 1. This is red vinyl. They put this out, and then they then asked online what songs people thought they would want on a compilation that were not on 40 Years Volume 1, and they made 40 Years Volume 2 out of those collections, or out of those tracks. And this is black vinyl, the 40 Years Volume 2. Red sleeve, black vinyl, black sleeve, red vinyl. This is a gold pressing of Pieces of 8 by Styx. Pretty awesome album. This is the first album by Supertramp. This is the second album by Supertramp, and I won't show the front cover here because I doubt YouTube would want me to have boobs on my channel. If you want to see the boobs, you can find them, but I won't show them here. Crime of the Century, their third album. A lot of people say that that's one of their best albums, and I would agree it's one of their best, but I also like some of their other stuff. Probably better than I like Crime of the Century. Crisis What Crisis is the last of their studio albums I ever acquired. For whatever reason, it took me a long time to find that one in condition and price I was willing to go for. Even in the quietest moments, this has Give a Little Bit on it. Fool's Overture. Yeah, this is just a great album too. There's a lot of good Supertramp in my collection. Breakfast in America. I assume most people know what Breakfast in America is. I don't have to explain how good Breakfast in America is. Paris, their live album. Yeah, 2 discs live, recorded in Paris. Not bad. Famous Last Words, their last album with Roger Hodgson on it. And in fact, the last album by Supertramp that I own, that's got a lot of neat, good stuff on it. Eye of the Tiger, Survivor, something good for everybody to have. Vital Signs, also Survivor. I believe this is the first Jimmy Jamison Survivor album. So there's that. Yeah. And this is interesting. This is Sweeney Todd. This is their first album. The lead singer of Sweeney Todd here is Nick Gilder, who you might know from his solo work. They recorded Roxy Roller, which was also later covered by, I believe, Suzi Quatro covered it. Sweeney Todd recorded 3 different versions of Roxy Roller with 3 different singers, because after this first album, Nick Gilder decided to leave the band and go on his own. So they got a new lead singer, Clark Perry, and recorded a single version of Roxy Roller, which they put out on a 45, which I think they got cease and desisted by Nick Gilder and his team of people from releasing that. So it's kind of hard to find. And then they recorded a 3rd version of Roxy Roller with their 3rd lead singer, which is the guy on this album here, If Wishes Were Horses, which the lead singer on this album is a 14-year-old whose voice they sort of pitched up a little bit by playing the tape faster, whose name is Brian Guy Adams. Yes, that Brian Adams. The Brian Adams of Reckless fame. The Brian Adams of all those albums I showed in the A section. This is the first band that Brian Adams was a part of. And they made only this one album with Brian Adams. And then they kind of fell apart after that. And they've come back together in recent years, I believe, with Nick Gilder again to do like touring and concerts and whatnot. But I don't think there's any more albums than just those 2 from Sweeney Todd. But yeah, that's an interesting factoid. If you want to hear 14-year-old Brian Adams, go find yourself If Wishes Were Horses. Also, if you want to see basically a naked centaur, go find yourself If Wishes Were Horses. So now we'll get the last letter of the alphabet I have to show, because I don't have anything after T. For whatever reason, I don't have anything that starts with U and onward in my collection here in the 12-inch section. And then after these last T's, I can get the Trooper stuff. So, more British Columbians. This guy's from Vancouver with his muscle rock, as he called it. This is Thor. I believe he's from Vancouver anyways. Keep the Dogs Away. Interesting album. I knew he was Canadian, and one day I was at the flea market and I saw like 7 copies of that, and I'm like, well, that's the universe. That's the universe telling me it's my time to buy Thor. Then we have Toronto, Looking for Trouble, their first album, which is great. This has even the score on it. Yeah, a lot of great stuff on Toronto. I have the whole discography of Toronto. Head On, Toronto. Get It On Credit, also Toronto. That has some great stuff on it. That has their biggest hit, Your Daddy Don't Know, is on Get It On Credit. Girls Night Out, which is three-dimensional album art if you have the red, blue 3D glasses. It came with them when you bought the album, but obviously I didn't get them because it was used. But I had a pair kicking around, so I can see the 3D. And then here is their greatest hits album. This has Your Daddy Don't Know, Looking for Trouble, Enough is Enough, Start Telling the Truth, Even the Score, Andrea, Ready to Make Up, All I Need, Silver Screen, Girls Night Out, Head On, and Me Generation. It's nice. It has Andrea and Me Generation are tracks that are not on any of their albums. So good way to make people buy your greatest hits, I guess. And then we have Hollywood's in Toronto, Assault and Flattery. This was as Toronto was sort of falling apart after Sharon and Brian left over what happened with the Get It On Credit and the What About Love and all that. They rebranded themselves as Hollywood's in Toronto and put out one final album. And the last of the T section here before the Trooper is Toto 4. This is the one with Rosanna and Africa on it. So I had to have this. Like you can't not have Rosanna in Africa. So let me put back these last T's. And then we'll go up here and we'll get one Trooper, two for the show, Thick as Thieves, or Malcolm Dead Kid, Thick as Thieves, Thick as Thieves, Hot Shots, Flying Colors, Untitled, Money Talks, and The Last of the Gypsies. And I'll also grab from down here other 3 copies. Oh. And here we have the last artist in the collection, Trooper, one of Canada's greatest bands, one of my favorite Canadian bands, signed by Ray McGuire and Brian Smith. I didn't get down Hits from 10 Albums and 10, which are on CD, which are hanging on my wall because they're in the corner and they're hard to get down. And they're CDs. And since we're only going over my records today, we don't need to see the CDs. These all came from my aunt, except for Hot Shots. Yeah. 2 for the show. That has Here for a Good Time on it. Oh no, this has Here for a Good Time on it. I'm sorry, that has just 2 for the show on it. And some other good ones. This is Knock 'em Dead Kid. This has We're Here for a Good Time on it. Also signed by Ray McGuire and Brian Smith. I feel kind of stupid that I had them sign on the backs, because you can't see the album art when they're on my wall because the signatures are displayed and they're on the backs. This one is Thick as Thieves. It has Res a Little Hell on it. I also have an unsigned gold version of Thick as Thieves with a ticket stub that it came with from 1992 from Vernon. But that's long before I saw Trooper in concert. I saw them in concert in 2009 here in Kelowna. So that's a gold vinyl copy of Thick as Thieves. This is Hot Shots, their greatest hits album, the first quadruple platinum album by a Canadian artist in Canada. The Boys in the Bright White Sports Car, Baby Won't You Please Come Home, General Hand Grenade, Two for the Show, Ready, Santa Maria, We're Here for a Good Time, Not a Long Time, Oh Pretty Lady, It's Been a Long Time, Round Round We Go, Moment That It Takes, Raise a Little Hell. Yeah, just all great stuff on here. And really, if you own one Trooper album, yeah, Hot Shots is probably a good one to get. But do note, the version of Boys in the Bright White Sports Car that is on Hot Shots has extra reverb in the intro that is not present on Two for the Show. Flying Colors, also signed by Ray McGuire and Brian Smith. This has 3 dressed up as a 9. It has Janine on it. Yeah. And I heard somewhere that there's a whole cohort of Canadian Janines whose name is spelled Janine, because that's how Ray McGuire spelled it when he titled the song, rather than the normal way that Janine was spelled prior to that. This is Untitled. Now, Untitled is funny in that the boys put out the record like this. No text on the cover. The record company didn't like that, so they made them put a sticker on the cover that said Trooper. And the no sticker copies are supposed to be quite rare. I've seen about 6 or 8 of them. Brian Smith said he didn't even own one when I saw them live. So when I found the second one I ever found, I also picked up so that I could maybe gift it to him if I ever saw him again. But then he went and retired, and I haven't seen him again, obviously. Then we have, this is the one that belonged to my aunt. It's weird because normally the Trooper sticker goes the other way. It goes like down. Ooh, I gotta figure out how to get my finger in it. It goes down like this. This is going the opposite direction. It's like rotated 90 degrees from how the Trooper sticker normally is. There's also a version with Trooper printed onto the cover. I don't have that version. And I only have so many of these because 2 I found with the no sticker, and I was like, ooh, these are rare. Brian said he didn't have one. Maybe if I ever see him again, I'll give him my extra one. That one with the sticker on it belonged to my aunt. And this one is one that I bought when the first one I owned, and you can see the scar of where the sticker used to be on here. And this is one where I peeled the sticker off myself in an effort to see what the album would look like with the sticker peeled off, so that I would know what to look for when looking for the non-sticker version, so that I would be able to tell, okay, this is a real no sticker copy versus this is a copy where somebody peeled the sticker off. And yeah, and then we have Money Talks. This is probably the low point in Trooper's collection, and if there was one Trooper album I would say not to own if you don't want to own them all, I would pick Money Talks as my low point, unfortunately. And then the last one we have here is The Last of the Gypsies, which is the last record Warner ever pressed in Canada before they stopped making vinyl in the early 90s. This is from 1989. And yeah, it has a lot of good stuff on it. It has Boy with a Beat. It has The Last of the Gypsies. It has Thin White Line, which is about the drug use and falling apart of the friendship between Ray McGuire and Tommy Stewart, as far as I know. So yeah, that's The Last of the Gypsies. And with that, that is all 261 pieces of 12-inch vinyl in my collection, outside of a few video game bootlegs, which I don't count as part of the collection proper, because they are, in fact, bootlegs. And I'm not going to show those off here. But yeah, so if you like it, like it. If you want to subscribe to see later on when I do the 7-inch stuff, great. But that's that. Hopefully we didn't take too long, but yeah, a couple hours, I guess. Go through the whole thing. So anyways, have a great afternoon and enjoy yourself. Have fun, listen to the music you like, and cheers.